Hi, my name is Ethan. I'm a dietetics intern from Missouri State University, and today we're going to talk about preventing diabetes. Today's focus is going to be on nutrition. First, we're going to talk a bit about weight loss and talk about whether or not it might be appropriate for you. Then we're going to go into talking about the plate method. It's a way of visualizing different foods that we might have on our plate. Finally, we're going to get really into the nitty-gritty of tons of different foods. Then we're just going to talk about goals and try and figure out ways that we can use all this knowledge that we've learned about food to help us eat better in the future. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is weight loss and whether it's appropriate for you. Not everyone is a good candidate for weight loss, depending on how much you actually weigh. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is talk to your doctor or dietitian about whether it's appropriate for you. They'll very easily be able to tell you whether or not you should lose weight and how much you should lose. Typically, it's between 7 and 10% of your body mass if you do need to lose weight. By losing weight, we can actually increase how our body reacts to the sugar in our blood and can increase the sensitivity. But just to note, this is not for everyone. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the plate method. It's just a way of looking at your plate and seeing if there's a nice variety of different foods on it. So what do we usually want a typical plate to look like? Well, first off, we want to make sure there's a nice protein, such as some chicken. Then we'll add in a starch, such as some nice mashed potatoes. Then we'll be looking at having some type of vegetable, broccoli for instance. And then finally we'll add in a little bit of fruit. If you notice, about half of our plate is fruit and vegetables, while a quarter is chicken or protein, and another quarter is our starch. Finally, we just top it all off with a glass of milk. We'll go more in depth on what each of these does for our body. So the next thing we're going to talk about is starchy foods. These foods are great for helping us keep our energy up by allowing us to have plenty of sugar in our blood so that we can feed our cells. But there's some ways that we can go about making some better choices with them. So the foods that are going to be included in starchy foods are going to be things like breads, tortillas, potatoes, beans, and all of our pastas. So the area that we're going to be looking at for making a little bit better of choices in is going to be mostly in our breads as well as in our pastas. What we're going to be looking for is whole grains. So we have two different items here, and both of them, when you look at them, look like they probably contain whole grains. We have a nice brown bread, and then we also have this box of crackers that has some nice darkly colored crackers as well as some wheat on the front of it. Makes us think maybe it's going to be whole grain. So let's go ahead and look at our bread first. When we look at the bread, it's pretty easy to see that there is whole grains on it. And then when we turn it around, we can easily look at our ingredients. And the first ingredient is whole wheat. That signifies that we're eating whole grains. Another thing we can look at is our fiber. So if we look at dietary fiber on our nutrition facts label, you'll see that it has 3 grams. That's a good source of fiber. If you have more than 5, you're looking at an excellent source of fiber. Now, what about when we look at these crackers? So when we're looking at these crackers, we'll see that, we have our darkly colored crackers, we have some wheat on the front, and it even says wheat. Now the question becomes, is this a whole grain product? So what we can do is we can look at our ingredients. The first ingredient is enriched flour. Now the thing that we need to note with enriched flour is that enriched flour isn't actually a whole grain. They've taken a lot of the stuff out and then they've put some things back in. Then when we look at our dietary fiber, we can see that there's less than 1 gram per serving, meaning that this isn't a very good source of fiber. Now the thing that we want to concentrate on with fiber is fiber can help us feel full for longer. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is our protein foods. These are going to be our meats, eggs, fish, so a wide variety of things. Now the thing to remember about protein foods is they're really good for helping us feel full. So if we can incorporate them at each of our meals, it can help us feel fuller for longer. And it can also make sure that our blood sugar doesn't go super high very quickly. So incorporating a little bit of meat at each of our meals is very beneficial. So the next thing we're going to talk about is fruits and vegetables. We all know they're good for us, but what exactly are the reasons why? Well, on the basis of vegetables, They're a fairly low calorie option and they are full of tons of vitamins and minerals. So they can be really good for helping us stay full for longer because of the large amounts of fiber, and they're also great for helping prevent chronic diseases. We also have fruits, which are also super high in tons of antioxidants and other vitamins and minerals that can be really beneficial in helping prevent chronic disease. So something that I do want to point out on the basis of fruits is the difference between dry and regular. So say that we have blackberries, for instance, and we were to dry them out. These are actually the exact same serving sizes. You can see that this one is a lot larger than this one is. So it's a lot easier to get a serving of fruit eating some dried fruit, but sometimes we can go a little bit overboard. That also brings up the discussion of juices. So if we're drinking juices, what are we getting that is different and the same? So first off, on the basis of juices, we actually lose out a little bit on the different benefits. So we're gonna have a very sugary drink, almost like soda would be, but we lose out on all the awesome fiber that we get from our different fruits that we have available. So it's not to say that juice is bad or that dried fruit are bad. It's just about knowing what options you have. So the next area we're gonna talk about is fats. And we're going to look at the basis behind what good fats are that are going to be really good for our health and preventing disease versus some of the other fats that we might have. Now, it's not to say that any fats are bad for you. We need all of them to some degree, but some of them can be more beneficial than others. So what are some of the ones that we have? Well, an example we have of one would be olive oil. Olive oil is a healthy fat. It's made out of monounsaturated fats and it helps prevent disease, and it's a good source of energy. We have other ones in the shape of nuts and seeds. Now the really cool thing about fat is that it helps us stay full for longer. This is a really reoccurring theme for a lot of these foods that we want to focus on. Fat, fiber, and protein are super important for making sure that we can stay full for longer, and they can also help slow the uptake of sugar into our bloodstream. So now that we've talked about all these different types of foods, let's talk about one that we didn't see on the plate. These are things that some people would like to call junk food. It's going to be things like soda, desserts, chips, things along those lines. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that all foods can fit into our diet. So if you do want soda, you can have soda. If you want chips, you can have chips. A burger and fries is fine. The thing that we really do want to try and push for, though, is slowly trying to get our plates to look more like we saw earlier, where we're making sure we're getting a nice amount of vegetables, of fruit, a moderate amount of starches, and a moderate amount of protein with a glass of milk. These are just really the things that we're pushing for. And so if we can slowly transition from drinking large amounts of soda to smaller amounts, from eating 5 slices of cake to maybe eating just 1 slice of cake, that's all progress, and you should feel awesome if you're able to do any of those. Alright, so now that we've talked a bit about weight loss and different styles of eating, let's go ahead and talk about goals. Now there are a ton of goals that you can come up with that are based around food. I'll give you an example of a couple of them. Maybe a couple of times a week you want to try and make sure that your plate looks similar to the plate method, where we're getting a protein, a starch, fruits, vegetables, and a glass of milk. But perhaps that's not the goal that you want to set in mind. Maybe you're looking more at weight loss. Maybe you want to lose that 7 to 10%. If you're wanting to do that, talk to your doctor. Find out how much would be a healthy amount for you to lose. And then after you determine that, make a goal of meeting with a dietitian so that you can lose it in a healthy manner. Other goals that you might set are maybe just decreasing the amount of soda that you drink from 2 cans to 1 can a day, or other things of a similar nature of that. Really, your goals don't have to be difficult, and any progress you make is a huge step forward, and it's great for helping to prevent diabetes. Alright, well, we covered a lot today. So, let's go ahead and look at what all we covered. First off, we talked about weight loss. Don't forget, if you're planning on losing weight, talk to your doctor or dietitian. They're going to be able to give you a nice weight loss goal, as well as help you to lose weight more efficiently. Next, we talked about the plate method, which is a style of eating that helps us get a nice variety of foods. These foods would include a protein, a starch, vegetables, fruit, And let's not forget milk. We looked at how beneficial each of these are to our daily diets, as well as some of the things that are in them that can really help out, such as fat, fiber, and protein, which can really help us to stay full for longer, as well as slow our body from intaking too much sugar at once. We also looked a little bit at junk food and discussed that it's alright that we have junk food and we don't need to cut it all out of our diets. But slowly decreasing the amounts that we're getting can be very beneficial for preventing diabetes. The final thing that we did is we covered some goals, and I really hope that you got at least one or two out of them. Now, if you're wanting to work on these goals, feel free to contact our dietitian at Jordan Valley.